We're going to talk about the demise of Big Al, and I think it's something that it's important to go back and look at. It's been 22 years since the death of Big Al, and I think this podcast is fitting because Big Al's name often doesn't get mentioned these days. Now, Big Al was also known as Lamont Coleman. That was his birth name. Big Al died on February the 15th, 1999 in Harlem. And there was a few things that led up to this incident taking place. But before I get straight into this, can you please sub to the channel? It only takes 2 seconds to sub to this channel. Now, with Big Al, he was shot a total of 9 times in the face and chest. It was a drive-by shooting. Now, Big Al was not hard to find. Big Al and his brother often frequented their neighborhood. They hung out on corner blocks. Big Al was killed on 45 West and 139th Street in Harlem. Now, on the lead up to this incident, there were a lot of things going on in Harlem at this time that situated around different crews, that different crews ran Harlem and had their own designated areas that they hung out in and did what they had to do to make money. And Big Al and his brother and his friends were no different. They actually ran certain corner blocks from what I've heard, and they were no saints. Now, these guys, we all know Big Al because he's a rapper, but these kind of things are going on in neighborhoods across America all the time. And Big Al was building a huge fan base on the lead up to his demise. He was getting recognition and his power base was growing, and so was his brother's power base. Now, the person that is suspected of killing Big Al is Gerard Woodley. And what a lot of people don't know is that Gerard actually lived on the apartments that are found at West and 139th Street in Harlem. So Gerard Woodley was a childhood friend of Big Al and Big Al's brother, and Gerard actually appeared on Big Al's back cover photo for the Lifestyles of the Poor and Dangerous album. Now, they all belong to the same set, and there was a lot that Big Al and his brother and associates were getting up to that caused a bit of a rift between Gerard Woodley and Big Al and his brother. So Big Al's brother ended up in jail for numerous offences. Big Al's brother was running a corner block in Harlem, was getting into a lot of conflict with rival sets and even people from with his own set. Now, this was because there was a lot, from what it's been alleged, was a lot of drug dealing going on, and people were getting set up at the time, drug dealers around Harlem and around the same block that Big Al and his brother frequented. People were getting set up, rival opposition were getting taken down, and people began pointing the finger at Gerard Woodley and also Big Al's brother. Now, people began to think that, they had been wrongfully set up by the ops, and Gerard Woodley started distancing himself from Big Al and his brother from what it's been alleged. Now, this caused a bit of a rift between the two, and it wasn't long before Gerard Woodley was himself set up in a police sting. He began pointing the finger at Big Al's brother, but by this stage, Big Al's brother was in prison for numerous drug and gun offences. So Big Al was not scared. He was not scared to show his presence on the block. He knew that there were a lot of people out to get him, but he still made his presence known. and he hung out on the streets, including the one that he was gunned down in, on a regular basis. Now, what happened was that a driver who a lot of people identified as Gerard Woodley, but did not go on official record with the New York Police Department, they said that they spotted Gerard pull up on Big Al and shoot him 9 times. Well, that's what's been alleged by certain witnesses, but these witnesses did not want to come out and make official statements. Big Al was killed instantly. There was no chance for survival when he was hit 9 times. He fell to the ground, he fell to where he was shot, and he perished straight away. His wounds were instantly fatal, as verified by Showbiz, who had the displeasure of seeing Big Al lying on the ground, deceased where he lay. And it's an unfortunate thing, but like everyone that was around this neighborhood was caught in a cycle of crime. And even Gerard Woodley was gunned down in 2016, June the 24th, 2016. Gerard Woodley was killed, but in unrelated circumstances. They had nothing to do with any of the people or situations that involved Big Al or his brother getting killed. Completely unrelated situation. Now, after Big Al's brother got out of prison, he went to the neighborhood. He went back to his neighborhood, what he knew, the only place he knew, and he began asking around for other people that may have been associated with helping Gerard Woodley the night Big Al was murdered and may have had some involvement in the murder of Big Al. Now, Big Al's brother was killed because he had a lot of enemies. It's been alleged that a lot of people that wronged him were also now out of prison and in the area around Harlem. And out for Big Al's brother's head, Big Lee was Big Al's brother's name. Leroy Big Lee made his presence known in the same neighborhood that Big Al was murdered in. That was his neighborhood as well, and he chose not to walk away or turn his back from the neighborhood, and that's what cost him his life. Someone that had been wronged or perceived they had been wronged by Big Lee, Big Al's brother, gunned Big Al's brother down in 2002. And the cycle continued. Big Al's nephew was recently killed, only 2 years ago. Was killed 2 blocks away from where his dad and Big Al were killed. So his dad being Big Lee and Big Al being his uncle. So Little Lee, the nephew of Big Al, was gunned down only 2 blocks away from where his own father and Big Al, his uncle, were killed. So this cycle of crimes continued. It's a rotten neighborhood. I mean, all these people are participants in things that are not just rap related, they're street related. These guys are gangsters first, rappers second, and they all got into situations where they met their demise, and that's a lifestyle that they lived. So they were under no illusion. That's how they decided to play it, and as a consequence, it cost them their life. Now, Big Al's killer was gunned down. So this killing happened in 2016, but as I mentioned before, it was nothing connected to the murder of Big Al. But Big Al, we can now look back at the rumors, and it's pretty much verified that Gerard Woodley was. It's verified there was a lot of substance to suggest that Gerard Woodley was responsible for Big Al's murder. If you look at the spokesperson that came out for the New York City Police Department, they said it was retaliation for something that Big Al's brother had done. And a lot of people from the streets, they talked, and murmurs, and rumors made their way through, and the truth slowly trickled out into the public domain. And now over the years, people have been able to dissect what happened in great detail. But it is apparent now that this was, all to do with, basically, to sum it up, two childhood friends that had a falling out over street things that, street business, and, street business and friendships don't mix sometimes, most times. And unfortunately, Big Al, his brother, and their childhood friend had a falling out that would have disastrous consequences, given the fact that they always were going to run into each other, that they lived in the same neighborhood block, and they were always around. So it became like a chess game. Who was going to get who first? Unfortunately, Big Al let his guard down. Big Al's brother was in jail, and Gerard Woodley made his move before Big Al could make his move. Now, I've heard rumours that Big Al actually was looking for Gerard Woodley, but Woodley got Big Al first, and that is the game that they play, and the chess game. Sometimes it doesn't work in the favour of what people want it to work out to. Big Al was claimed at a very early age, and he left a short body of work that has mostly been released. I don't think there are many Big Al unreleased songs left. I've spoken to Lord Finesse about this. I've spoken to many producers that have worked with Big Al, and pretty much all the vault of songs of Big Al have been released. And, Big Al left behind enough material for them to release eventually, an album to bring Big Al's total to, 3 albums. And that's where it stands. So the legacy of Big Al, slowly fading now because so many rappers have come and gone and died the same way as Big Al. It's unfortunate. But, everyone involved in this situation too is now deceased. So most of these people that were in Big Al's crew are deceased. There are not many people now left, and it's unfortunate because not many witnesses or people that can, come out and say this wasn't worth it. This game, the trap that people involved themselves in Harlem, it just didn't work out. And since then, many people have, many rappers in the game that came from Harlem, like Cameron, have been able to, shed some light on little details here and there. But mostly everyone involved in this situation is deceased. So it's unfortunate. But yeah, big ups to, whoever still reps Big Al's legacy. He really didn't have enough time to leave more of a legacy behind. In his short existence, he perished before he could record more material. And, we are just grateful that we have the material and body of work that Big Al left behind as it stands. Anyway, I'm MC Rapology. Be sure to sub to this channel. Let me know your thoughts on this situation. Is there something you disagree with? Something you agree with? Let me know. Peace.